Right. All right, y'all. Welcome to the Why Web3 Music, Tech, Media webinar and meet and greet. I'm here live from Music City with some people from around the world in the audience and on our panel today. We got a special treat, y'all. Live events have been happening in the Web3 space for quite some time. Even 2017, 2018, 2019, Cleveland had something called Blockland. Now Cleveland has Futureland, which is absolutely amazing, backed by the city of Cleveland, Mayor Justin Bibb. Shout out to the Futureland team. You might even hear from some of them a little bit later in the call. Nashville, Tennessee has a scene that's cooking more than just hot chicken and all that good stuff on Broadway to Midtown to Germantown and beyond. There is a scene of events, curators, advisors, from one-on-one meetings to small micro groups to weekly, monthly events to major things happening in Nashville, Tennessee. And Camila Sanders is one of those people who is regularly doing the whole deal, from one-on-one meetings to curating bigger events or coming alongside like the Arts and Business Council to provide a panel addressing Web3. Absolutely epic. We have Camila Sanders on the call. Where's that clap machine? Hey.
Thank you.
Hey. Awesome. Honor to have you. Andrew Schiffman. Andrew's been in the music, tech, multimedia industry for over 20 plus years, from MTV, different labels, all the way up into Web3, working with companies like Rally to Yellow Heart, really specializing in NFT ticketing, advising artists, and just really understands this space. He's really turned a corner, just came back from NFT London. So we got one of the best in the biz, in the blockchain biz and beyond, Andrew Schiffman. Where's that clap machine? Hey, that's what I'm talking about. So guys, I'm just going to turn it over for a quick second to our special guest. And he's a resident advisor with us, the host of Wartime Leadership, and has so many, such great insights. So Nathan Coy. Hey.
Hey. See, I'll give myself some claps on that. Man, Brandon, love to be here again, bro. You do a phenomenal job of setting all this up, man.
Hey, you know what? I had a break last week with Vanderbilt's Wandery, Catherine Rickmeyer and that whole team that they host an awesome monthly event at Vanderbilt Wandery, and then going right into Camila's event, just being able to come alongside with the beginners bar and see some amazing people come in. It's like, you know, everybody's got to spearhead something, but we all can bring something to somebody else's table also. And I could just say it's just been such a gift there's so many people who've contributed to this wave that's taken me across the country, you know, and to help take Andrew across the world and so many others, that this is a community. You know, when we think about something like why Web3 and people want to wrap their minds about it, I really try to do my best to help them catch the passion, help them catch the people, because that is really what have accelerated, not just myself, but I know so many people, because they felt like they didn't just find their tribe, they found like their whole, you could take all the tribes and put them together. It's like you can find your people in this space, and it's not always what you think it's going to be. There's a proximity in this Web3 space with less gatekeepers and more room for collaboration. Because like my friend John Mediana, co-founder of NFT Nashville, what he says, we're all beginners here. When's the last time we all got to be beginners at something? So I want to open it up. Andrew, if you could talk a little bit, man, about kind of the evolution that you've seen with special events, you know, from URL to in real life, and where you see, like, what's the role of the conference circuit and even music festivals and all that kind of stuff? What are you seeing in this space? And you can even go before you got into the space, kind of what you're up to date.
All right. Well, again, thanks for having me. Just feel right at home whenever I'm on any of your webinars, getting to see some familiar faces. We've kind of known each other for, I don't know, almost 2 years, I think, just, coming up. But it's really good to be here. Conference circuit's a little tricky. It's really what you want to get out of it, right? For some, it's just seeing people in real life and, networking. For those of us that are on Twitter Spaces a lot, we kind of maybe not going to learn anything new, but it's always good to network and, see people in real life. So I get that about some of these conferences. There was a lot of panels. NFT NYC really does go above and beyond with speakers and panels, and it's a little tough trying to navigate. And some panels are super early and some overlap, so it's hard to navigate over like 6 floors of conference space. But NFT London was great. I had an amazing time, met some people I haven't seen but been acquainted with over the year. I see some kind of holes in that as well, things that could be fixed, just coming from an outsider, putting my attendee hat on. But I think that will come. There are a lot of conferences out there, and they're not cheap. They have a pretty hefty price tag. So if you're paying, you've really got to get a lot out of it. So a lot of planning, I think, before the conference, so you really make the most of it. But in the live event space, I've been at MTV since 2000. I've worked on all of the award shows. I've been to a load of concerts. I worked the first Coachella doing corporate communications back in 2000. And I've been going to concerts. I was just back in my old house and my dad gave me some concert tickets from 1994. So now I have some of that memorabilia to keep. But I see Web3 really being an incredible, tool set for attendees and conference event holders to really utilize this. And I think it's that digital ticket, it's that programmable ticket, it's a ticket that you can keep as a piece of memorabilia, but also use that ticket and the tech that's installed to give you an experience beyond that event. So I think that's what we're really looking at in terms of NFT ticketing, is creating that experience, beyond that event. It's almost pre, during, and post. For people that are issuing events and tickets and NFTs, really don't overpromise and underdeliver, and really make it, a use case. What's the value for the attendee to buy an NFT ticket? What's the value for someone to buy an NFT? So we see a lot of projects, but they really have to have some value. And I was hearing a lot about it, Web 2.5 over at NFT London. So even though we want to go fast and build and go all in on Web 3, I don't think the mass audience is really ready for it yet. So it's almost masking the technology, using a use case and a platform that we're familiar with, right? So whether it's an Eventbrite looking platform or a Spotify looking platform for streaming, really make it familiar. So I don't think we're, the mass audience is ready to dive in 100%, but I think masking it can really make them engage and, without knowing it's blockchain.
It's good. And absolutely. You know, in the role of music, we see, you know, that's kind of been the sizzle. And I've seen, you know, when Eat Denver had Dead Mouse and you had DJs and all these different, you know, now Sammy Arriaga's traveling the country. And
I was with him a lot in London, yeah.
I
And
mean,
I
just
met Malik, right?
and we need more of these people. And you know, just the event that Camila was just part of, spearheading in Nashville, had a DJ and it was really cool vibe. Camila, maybe talk about your heart a little bit behind why, you know, why Web3 for you and why events? Like, why is that so important?
Yeah, so my background is in marketing, 20 plus years. And I always done events, whether it's small events or international conferences, whether it's attending or actually organizing the conferences, whether it's educational, it's trade shows, or, you know, the whole gamut, right? And so for me, I just love doing events, right? And so when I started my organization in 2019, that was the focus, right? And it was a focus on creative, so fashion and art. And I think that, you know, the whole premise for the events that I do is, one, to combine, you know, IRL, but then also whether it's having the reception in the metaverse or the DJ projecting into the metaverse or whatever it is, because you're putting together these different audiences. And everyone's like at a different level on their journey. Some people don't even know what Web3 is or NFT is. But if you can get people in the room that are creatives and maybe they heard a little bit about it, and then they want to get in and they want to talk about it, and there's some type of experience that happens at that event, that, for example, the one that I just did last week, there was a VR, you know, someone designing a garment in VR, right? And you could see that live, right? And so that starts to pique people's interest and say, oh, this actually exists. And the one that I did last year was called Into the Metaverse. And we had the metaverse projecting on the wall with people, you know, hanging out in the same gallery in the metaverse, you know. And I was like, you know, these are real people, like showing people that this is actually happening now. And it's something to start the conversation. But then it's also the cool thing. And Andrew, you mentioned, like, to me, I mean, the best part about going to a conference is the networking part, right? And so it's kind of, you know, with these events, it's more extracting that networking part and bringing the right people to the event so that we can all make connections. And the event that I did last year was it was called Fashioning Our World Together. And it was really because I was in touch with a bunch of different meetups. And the meetups were all like, you know, how can we get more people to our meetup? How can we start to have these conversations? And each one is a little bit different. So why not get everybody in the room? One, we can connect with each other, but then other people that are curious, that are, you know, maybe know a little bit about these technologies, can kind of connect to those different groups or people that they resonate with, that can, you know, they can kind of find their tribe and continue it on. And like you said, you know, there's an NFT associated with the event so that we can communicate and activate that community that was interested, and tell them, hey, here's the next thing that's going on that you can have access to, you know? So it's a great way to incorporate these different technologies and get people interested and excited about what's happening. And so, you know, I'm always all for the networking part and us connecting. I think that's really important at an event, and doing it in a fun way, right? Because I mean, sometimes it is hard to like sit through a panel discussion. It's so much information, but if you like Brandon, you were there, you know, if you could talk to somebody about what an NFT is and how to open my wallet and stuff like that, and just have that conversation, I mean, you know, you can do that on the spot, right? So it's doing it in a fun and engaging way.
That was really cool about like the beginners bar. Was I literally was standing by the table that it was announced for the beginners bar, and these ladies who had a design company, they designed some of the lighting in the co-working building we were in, which was absolutely beautiful. And they're like, hey, you're the one we need to talk to. And I'm like thinking, I'm gonna start pointing to the people they really need to talk to, and I just feel like in this case, I get to just be like, I'm not cooking the food in the restaurant. I'm not necessarily even bringing all the food to the table, but like a host, I can bring the people to the table. And that's where I think a lot of people are intimidated by the space because they think they need to fully understand it. But if you're somebody who likes bringing people together, all you have to do is have like a curiosity and want to actually get because the little bit you understand, like there's people who probably think I really understand this stuff, or Nathan, who really doesn't even think he understands this stuff, understands this more than most people, just because of proximity. We've spent a lot of time around the people. It's not just all osmosis, but it is when you start to have friends that are making moves in the space. And there's so many people who have very close musician friends, but they don't call themselves a musician, but yet they could be in the room. Like musicians, other people. It's like you really are more than you realize. Just because, so it's cool because can you guys touch to what are you guys seeing as far as like, it seems like there's an answer in these communities because everybody had seemed so polarized, separate from each other. And it seems like there's a lot more common ground, it seems like, because it is so new for people. Maybe touch on that kind of like, what does that look like in a community sense or like from a relationship standpoint?
I mean, I think this space allows a lot more collaboration, in the music space between that and artists to, design artwork, to collaborate musically on tracks. Musicians aren't Web3 musicians. They're still musicians and artists just trying to navigate their way with this technology to further engage with their community and add some extra revenue. If you've been on Twitter in the last 24 hours, you've heard about OpenSea announcing about, possibly in 30 days, not giving out royalties to, for secondary sales. But, I think musicians still have to always think about other means of revenue. And if it's adding value to a real world experience through an NFT, then maybe they'll sell more albums or they'll sell merch or whatever it is, right? So there's still ways for Web3 artists to sell revenue. The secondary market, the royalties, they're not guaranteed anyway. You're still making that money on primary sales. So secondary markets are not obviously guaranteed, but I'd like to see their 2 or 5 year plan on why they've announced that. There's other platforms that have kind of come on as well, but you just really have to know your audience. And yes, this is a new space, but you've still got to do things in the music space. You're still touring, whether it's digitally, in the metaverse or, IRL. You're still creating merch, whether it's physical or, digital wearables. So you still got to have a roadmap, and Web3 can definitely, integrate into that roadmap.
Yeah, and I think that we've seen a lot of this happening lately. This is where I jump in on my specialty, right?
Yeah.
The collaboration piece. So I was in a really, really good conversation on LinkedIn this afternoon, sitting on a panel, and had a really good discussion because the whole point was collaboration.
Mhm.
And I actually brought up this space right here because I know little to nothing about NFTs, about crypto even, but within the last 2 weeks, I've actually bought my first 2 NFTs. I've stepped out and away from the unknown, right? It's like, I've got to get in, I've got to see. Even my wife is very adamant about, this is the new thing coming out. We need to understand it because we still have enough life in us that we're going to need to know what this looks like, plus to be able to pass down to our son so he can be educated about this stuff. So I'm jumping in 100%. It doesn't matter, at the very beginning of COVID, we talked and we used a heavy word, pivot, right? pivot, pivot, pivot. Everything was centered around this idea of the pivot, where we have to adjust what we're doing. We have to continue to adjust in the same position. But now we're at the point in NFTs or in any of these realms that we need to start advancing that ball, right? And that's when you have to get to your specialty skills player. See, not every single person who comes to the basketball court has the same skill. Michael Jordan would not have been as great as he was if there wasn't for a Scottie Pippen, right? Like somebody has to have somebody who's good at passing the ball. Somebody has to have somebody who's good at adjusting to a defense, of blocking out. All of those different elements is here, right here and now. We each bring a different element. So Andrew, just the fact that you bring in this idea of what the Web3 ticketing, these types of concepts, we listen a lot to Royal Wooten talk about that he's starting to sell these tickets, and the tickets are going to be like NFTs with pieces of artwork on them that eventually over the period of a series, those pieces are going to come together. And the more that you come to, the more you can start to see the artwork on the back become and create something different. Mm-hmm. This is all brand new, but hey, we got to jump in on it at some point. So collaboration, bringing what and Camille, listen, you putting together conferences is a huge thing. So even right here between the two of you, we have a collaborative concept going on. So where do you see in the future this going between the different elements being able to be drawn in together into an environment like this where we can talk and bring those up? To either one of you.
Go for it, Camilla.
Okay. So the question was bring together what different elements?
Bringing and collaborating together. Like, when are we going to break through? How can we break through this? I have this information. I'm going to stovepipe it and keep it to myself. How and when are we going to actually break through that to start these collaborative concepts, masterminds?
Yeah, I mean, this is it, right? We're doing it here. Because I think, there are a lot of people, when you talk to people that are newer to the space, they said, I've heard of this, but I don't know how to use it, or I don't know if I should use it. I don't know if it's a scam. Like, there's so much misinformation out there. It's crazy, right? Especially if you're just getting in now, there's so much information to know. But then when you start to attend things like this, or you go to a conference, you actually talk to a person and you kind of feel like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. Like, I can trust them. I see, who they're working with and things like that. I think that's when those conversations start to happen, is when you can have that deeper conversation with someone. Because if I can have a conversation with someone that just has that thought in their head, I can help them to understand, like Andrew said, like, oh, this is a way that I can bring in some more revenue, or this is a way I can activate my audience, or, whatever that is, whether it's a musician or an artist. So I think it's about having conversations like these and really connecting with people in a more intimate way, which I believe that Web3 and NFTs in the metaverse, it helps you to do that, right? Because even if you're like in a VR headset and you're in a place, you can have conversations that are even more intimate than this with somebody, right?
Exactly.
I always try to, I don't know if everybody remembers that show, like Laugh In, or I just call this Pop In, because you never know it's going to pop in. We got Andrew we got two Andrews now, Mad NFTs in the mix. And I know we've had Andrew on calls before. And so I'm just starting to lay calls by the time we get into this thing. And Andrew Shipman, if you wanted to kind of piggyback off of Camila, and then.
Yeah, I just say, we entered this space super fast. Yes, crypto's been around and blockchain, but not to a lot of people, right? And I think when the transition of music happened from, CD to streaming, I think there was a better plan and a strategy to release it to the masses. The way that NFTs were released was, unfortunately, with, PFP pictures worth, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. So now we're pretty much backtracking and trying to say, no, Web3 and NFTs is not about PFP pictures and, cash grabs. But, I think we really didn't have that time to build the music strategy. We've released it. We have a bad use case, and now we're trying to add different use cases that fit various verticals. I had a great experience learning about NFT ticketing from Yellow Heart. It's an amazing team, but my whole career I've really been in artists building community and engaging. So I really look at tickets as really that NFT access point for fan engagement, and I think every NFT, whether it's a music track, it really needs to come with that fan engagement. And I really didn't hear enough about the metaverse at NFT London, and I really was missing some of those digital experiences, even in the exhibitor hall. Or it would have been amazing if a panel, maybe they gave out 100 goggles to the first 100 people that went in. But honestly, no, I don't think any room really had 100 people in it. But I think for the live event, you really need to focus on giving your attendees those experiences that if they are on Twitter Spaces every day, they're really going to get some additional value on, seeing a lot of these things that we're hearing on our phones and in Twitter Spaces in real life. So I think that was a missed opportunity at a live conference.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Reality, no VR stuff. Yeah.
See, 2 weeks ago, I was actually at a conference for my industry within the military, and it's called the Airlift Tanker Association. And there, it was really neat because there was these little booths with goggles set up throughout, and there wasn't a whole lot of people going to them. And I'm sitting here going, okay, I got you. So I started heading over there, and I'm talking, and it's because of these types of groups where I was actually able to talk about Web3 and 2.0 and different things like this, where I was actually getting it. And so they were showing me these goggles and the technology that they're doing and advancing in logistics, even in logistics for us within our training world, where they're doing training, whereas they used to use like $1.5 million aircraft to train students on. They'd take it out of commission, they would break it down, they'd show all these different things. Now they're virtually set up where they have to reach over, pick up a screwdriver, screw on this panel, put the down, come over here, grab it over. And you don't get those types of, if I'm hearing about it, I'm going, well, what kind of training are they getting?
Right.
Versus in person, I was actually able to sit down and do it myself. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have got to be kidding me. Like, it doesn't feel like you're picking it up, but you look at it and you have the sight, you have the feel to where you're putting it up on this. And it's just, it puts everything into perspective.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. 100%. And I think also with the conference and event space, I think, KYC, yes, everyone's registered, so they know the company and your socials, but they don't know who attended, every individual panel. And I think having that data would be beneficial for recurring events, but also some further interaction down the road. Maybe NFT London would send out, here's a follow-up Twitter space and include everyone that attended that panel, and, to at least start. Because, I got more out of probably finding down and tracking down someone on a panel and having more of a one-on-one afterwards. Brandon knows a lot of the networking's done in the lobbies and outside. That's really the place to be at these conferences.
Yeah, I've literally been at conferences where I didn't have a media pass, I didn't have a ticket. I just worked the lobby and the satellites and had a blast. I'm not going to say which ones, but it's kind of because, I had friends that just assumed that I was already in, and sometimes you just walk in with your people. But sorry, that's on YouTube here. So make it up to y'all. But I wanted the really special guy here that even the way we got connected was cool from some mutual friends. And Andrew from Mad NFTs, man, you hit the ground with some Cardano stuff recently. You've been part of the Harmony community. You've seen the ups and downs of this deal. How's the events kind of keeping some equilibrium in all of this?
Yeah, definitely, man. And I really like Andrew Schiffman's point about, how it happened so fast, right? With NFTs. I think a lot got lost there with visibility, first of all, but then definitely just the access and the simple understanding for people. Because I think a lot of people on the outside looking in, even at the events, the way they've been going, will say NFTs aren't for me, or, what's the use case for me? And so for us, it's always been about just driving home that educational piece. I think that's kind of step one. And I think we had Will T on here, so I'm interested to pick his brain a little bit more too. But really just, I think events when Nathan talks about the military focus and all the applications there, some people have no idea. And I think really we're kind of an introverted space. Web3 tends to be a little bit of an introverted space. So really just putting those things out front, right? Putting those things out front of the conference. Because one thing I've seen, whether it's a Cardano event, whether it's NFT NYC or LA, or any of an alt chain that has a smaller community that's doing their own event, there's not a lot of outside engagement this last year compared to the previous year. And there's not a lot of new people coming in that we're really looking to feed and engage with and teach and bring their skills and talents and find their needs in Web3, right? And so really just being focused on the outsider piece is really what I'm trying to see more of at these events myself. But overall, yeah, it's been a great year. It's been a great circuit. I was in Vegas for CNFT Con, which is kind of like on the fringe of things, just being Cardano in general. But I think the another thing that we're seeing a lot is the multi-chain approach, the cross-chain approach, which is something we've taken on in the last few months. As a visibility factor and an education factor and an accessibility. It all comes back to that accessibility. What can people afford? Not what makes sense in your region, in your country. Some chains that don't have a huge presence here are bigger in other parts of the world. And so just really providing that huge shop window, I think is our focus moving forward. And I see we have our boy Will T jumping in as well. So any piece you want to tap on there with education. The last piece I guess I would say is we have our Mad Academy, which is really just anybody can come on. The idea is that it's chain agnostic. You could watch these videos and within 30 minutes leave with an understanding of the industry. And I think, the more we can get those quick onboarding tools, if we could even get it down to like 5 minutes, and hey, you understand how this can apply, that use case that, that's come out a couple of times today. How can this apply, make my life better, make my life easier, or let me help more people? Really just driving those points home.
Cool. Can you post that link to Andrew?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Will T.
What's happening, fam? How's it going? I don't know if there's a question in there. Brandon, you're the moderator, so obviously I always defer to you, but
I'll take it back. I'll ping pong it because from the education piece, man, you've been hitting it. You haven't just been on the speaker circuit and at the conferences, but you regularly hit this education piece hard. So if you'd like to piggyback off of that, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's what I'm founded and grounded in, right? My first family at crypto, when I first came into that community, that's what it was all about. We were learning the beauty of decentralized finance. We were learning the power of yield farming. And so we were learning all that so we could empower ourselves to empower other people with the same knowledge. So yeah, naturally, when I came into this space, after about 7 months of being on a solo journey, I gravitated towards the educational side because I wanted to learn more myself. No, excuse me. And we understood that the more we learned, the more we educated ourselves, the more we could teach others about this space. And that's really where it's about. Excuse me, I got to take some water real quick.
No, and
Education is everything, man.
What's that?
In every industry. The education. knowing what you pass along to others, I think is important. Misinformation isn't good, especially in this space.
Sorry, I was actually just watching Will walk back into the back. It was like you getting smaller into the frame and then coming back out. Yeah, education is essential, and that's what I've really enjoyed about these types of groupings. That's why I ended up just pushing the button, and I followed just step by step on how to do that, how to set up my MetaMask, how to actually end up purchasing, and it was all because of people taking the time to sit down and talk to me and walk me through this process, because I think that we make everything new seem so difficult, right? And in reality, we all hold a little key to each of these different ways of how it's done. And just sitting down, walking through, setting up the MetaMask, setting up, and then going in and actually purchasing, the idea of gas. These are all just different terms for stuff that we've been doing for years upon years in a physical sense, right? It's putting different words to how things are done, but it's educating people through that process that's going to lead to the greater success of what this looks like.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely, 1000%. I can
Well
resonate
said,
with
well
that.
said.
Yeah, that is well said. And just kind of coming back to my point that I was making about the education being the most powerful vehicle for onboarding people right now. Right now we see other things in our society. Take an airplane example, right? We don't necessarily know how the airplane works, but we know the airplane's going to get us from point A to point B, right? And that's the future of Web3. That's what future adopters that's what their experience will be like. But those of us that are here now, that are pioneers in this space, we do need to have some semblance of how the technology works and what the technology is capable of, especially if we're like-minded to bring about effective change throughout the world that's peer-to-peer and free of intermediaries.
Beautiful. Well, hey guys, we are getting ready to wrap up this side of the deal. We're actually going to go off of YouTube right here in a moment. You had to be signed up on Zoom to be on this part. So sign up early, sign up early, sign up early. Next one's going to be in December. We'll be announcing that soon. And any last minute, last second popcorn from any of our panelists, that anything they want to say before we go into the fireside chat. 7 seconds or less.
Community is your best friend in Web3.
Beautiful. Love it. All
Collaboration is bringing your strengths to the fight to complete a unified mission.
Okay, I got one then. Authenticity is your cultural currency.
Beautiful. Wow. All right, Andrew. Well, Andrew's just like, he just kind of takes it all in.
I got nothing. That was great.
Hey, you could just be, man. You've been doing it, and in the realm of the rise of social capital, we've been talking about that on our More Than a Mastermind. You're going to hear from some of our friends here on the Fireside Chat. If you want to get involved on the business development side or anything like that, feel free to reach out. We'll have a link in the chat here shortly, and also a survey that you can fill out too, to help us do even better at these kind of things. Shout out to the Web3 Collective, Benny Pacala, and all that team over there in Miami and around the globe. Futureland, we love you. Cleveland, Nashville, Miami, and beyond. We're live here. Andrew Schiffman, Nathan Coy, Camila Sanders, Will T, and Andrew from Mad NFTs. Stick around for the Fireside Chat. God bless. Much success. Let's keep it moving.